of us, not in all of us in the office, but yeah, quite. Yeah.
Hello, welcome to the CII SummitFX. We are doing a special training session on the power of consumer insights in content creation outside and in approaches to development. We have with us Ms. Kiran, Prasad, Head of Production, MPC Film Bangalore, Mr. Alex Rapley, Client Success Manager, Kids Insight and Parents Insight, and Ms. Lele Dutta, Business Head, Sony Pictures Network India, Kids Genre. I'll take, ma'am, over to you, please.
Thank you, Kiran. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the session. As Kiran mentioned, the session is about the power of consumer insights in content creation and the various approaches to its development. Just to give a background of how India stands today, as per our census in 2011, fairly outdated. However, kids less than 14 years kind of constituted of almost 31% of the total population. That's a huge population of kids available. We as India are probably the second largest online market internet users in the world. We also have about 161 million people having access to cable TV, satellite, and our penetration of paid cable and satellite is at about 80%. So what we are sitting on is a bedrock of content creators' paradise. I mean, you have accessibility, you have the right amount of people available to watch this content. And simultaneously, we have a larger challenge, which is consumer behavior is changing on a daily basis, and it is getting increasingly complex. So what is it that we need to do as content creators, as media and entertainment teams, to be, bringing in change? So with so much of change, with just a click of a mouse, there is content available, there is behavioral changes, there is influencers who change the way people behaviors changes. It's something that we need to kind of look at. And today, children kind of have a huge influence of how parents also consume. So as per a study, about 43% of the total family buying is influenced by children. So it makes a lot of sense for us to look into this matter. And it's my pleasure and to welcome two of the esteemed speakers today who are with us to help us decode this challenge that we face. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Alex Rapley and Leena Dutta. Alex is from the Insights people, Kids and Parents Insight. He has been with Insights people for some time, and they are global leaders in kids, parents, and family market intelligence. So they almost do surveys with 2 lakh children a year, and have gained reputation as the most comprehensive and dynamic market intelligence specialists in kids. So welcome, Alex. It's a pleasure to have you on this session.
Thank you, Kiran.
Leena is the business head for Sony Pictures Network India, the kids genre. She has a career which spans over 20 plus years in the Indian media and entertainment industry. And she has been instrumental in commencing and growing new businesses with Sony Pictures portfolio, which includes the content distribution division, and more recently leading the kids business for Sony Pictures. So we will, the way the session is planned is that we will start with Alex presenting consumer insights for us, followed by Leena letting us know how Sony Network has used or leveraged these insights and created content to keep children engaged. Both the sessions then would be followed by a question and answer session. So do please send in your questions on the platform, and we'll pick up those post the presentations. So, Alex, over to you. You could bring up your presentation, and then we could start the session.
Perfect. So just double checking it's all presenting and displaying correctly for you guys. So thanks very much again, Kiran, for introducing me. Yeah. As Kiran has mentioned, the Insights people operate services called Kids Insights and Parents Insights across the world. And what we do is we find out everything that's going on in the world of children, tweens and teens. So that's everyone from the age of 3 to 18. what's going on in both their real worlds, their physical worlds, their tangible worlds, but also their digital lives, and how their online personas, how their online attitudes, behaviors and consumption patterns are changing and evolving over time. Specifically in this case, to discern how content needs to adapt to these attitudes, behaviors and patterns as well, to really reflect the audience needs for children in 2020 and going forward as well. So as Kiran has mentioned, we are going to be touching on kids in India, looking at an introduction to what we do, but then moving on to what the new generation of content consumers looks like, specifically in the Indian marketplace, how they're consuming content, where they're consuming content, and what I suppose, a typical day in the life of a child in India looks like in terms of both their online lives and their offline lives as well. Then we'll look at 3 particular changes, developments, evolutions that we've seen as a result of coronavirus and lockdown within the Indian marketplace, and how those are going to resonate beyond this kind of current period of time into the future. Then we'll look at specifically the power of licensing in the kids space and how brands, properties and IP owners can really leverage that opportunity to reach out to kids, especially at this time. Then we'll summarize everything with a few key takeaways, and then we'll have some questions at the end, as Kiran has mentioned. So Kids Insights is a market research company that's purely focused on children and their worlds and the worlds of their families as well, because this generation is like no other that's come before it. It's more unpredictable, more fragmented, and has far more greater choice when it comes to both content they consume, but also the influence they exude over their families. So market research that reflects this speed of change, this pace of change, has never been more important than it is today. So what we do is we constantly continually speak to children across the world throughout the year, just to make sure we are keeping track of trends that are emerging from and impacting on the kids space. And so we are speaking globally to just over 250,000 different children every single year. And in the Indian marketplace alone, we're speaking to around 21,000 kids every single year, which breaks down to about 420 a week. In fact, we've calculated recently, we're speaking to one child globally on average about every 48 seconds. So it really shows the necessity to keep track with kind of the pace of change in the kids. And we work with all kinds of brands across the kids space, not just entertainment brands, but also food and drink brands, media agencies, and also toys and games, as you would expect in the kids space. So India and Indian content consumers, what do they look like in 2020? Well, firstly, we need to define what this generation is. So when you speak to a lot of traditional people who are operating in the kids space, there's still this assumption that the next generation are millennials, which is unfortunately not the case anymore. When we talk about the next generation, we're talking about Generation Z and Generation Alpha, so kids that were born after 1995. And in fact, some members of Generation Z are parents themselves. So it really does show that we need to firstly get an understanding of what this generation looks like in terms of its demographic makeup. And then in India alone, we can see how this breaks down in terms of the ways in which they're encountering and interacting with the world as well. So you can see Indian kids' device usage is amongst some of the highest globally. It has the highest TV ownership globally of all the kids that we survey, at around 41%, and also the second highest mobile phone ownership, which is only beaten by Brazilian kids, but it's still a substantial, nearly 70% of Indian kids own their own mobile phone. So kids are more familiar with technology than ever before. So the importance of capturing their attention across different platforms, across different media is no more important than it has been today. And the day in the life of a child in India is very different to even what it was 5-10 years ago. Prior to lockdown, about a quarter of kids' time was occupied with school, including travel and commuting. And kids' time has now shifted. Parents and kids alike are having to adapt to an increasingly home-based lifestyle. In fact, the number of kids who compare to do things alone compared to doing things in the group has risen nearly 70% since January, which shows that despite the fact that kids and parents have to coexist, there's still that kind of need for independence and autonomy as well. Interestingly, kids are growing more comfortable though under this new normal, and this group of kids are on average less likely to never do chores and more likely to be playing video games before 9 a.m. So it really shows that things have taken a significant shift during lockdown. And you can see as well that schoolwork and studying has grown significantly as a favorite hobby as kids adapt to this kind of home education phenomenon that we see as well. And so this moves on to what we're seeing during lockdown and kind of some of the trends that we see really impacting on the kids' space and ones that we see having a resonance that will move beyond lockdown, beyond these measures of control into what content needs to look like moving forward. So the first of which is edutainment as a concept. So edutainment is essentially the combination of entertaining content with an educational slant to it as well. And we find the content and the experiences that have this educational lean to them, but still retain that entertainment perspective, make the responsibility of parents who are now the teachers in the home, taking on the responsibility from teachers in the school, makes that a lot easier for them as well. So a lot of brands are embracing this, and we feel that marketing messages need to highlight the educational credentials of a product, but also balance this with still maintaining a sense of fun to keep the kids engaged as well as their parents. Educational videos, as you can see, account for almost a third of the choices when it comes to YouTube viewing for 3 to 12-year-olds in India. And this group over-indexes and is strongly preferring science as a favorite school subject, which really shows the benefits to that combination of fun and education, And this group as well is far more likely to have these aspirations of serious, I suppose what we call white collar careers when they grow up as well. We can see some of the brands that we do see combining this already, things like Minecraft, who have a well-established educators platform where children can explore historical sites, journey through biodiversity on courses that have been developed by the World Wildlife Federation. Those have real resonance with kids as well. And we can see Kidzania centres in India as well, both before and after lockdown, in terms of that combination having a real resonance with the family unit as well. So what does this mean really for kids in India in terms of moving forward? So we can see that lockdown means that parents, as I mentioned before, are having to take on the role of teachers. So having educational and entertaining experiences is more essential than ever before. And we can see that reflected in our data. So we can see before that educational videos are increasing in popularity. At the same time, things like science and science, technology, education, and mathematics, toys are increasing by a significant proportion in terms of popularity of toys. The implications, therefore, for marketing, for branding, and for content are that products with a purpose, content with a purpose, with an educational purpose, should really cut through, and content creators who are looking to create videos, animations, shows that have this educational message should really shout about it, really make it stark, and also look to maybe create things beyond their traditional bounds. Things like podcasts are going to be an ever popular source of edutainment programming as well. The second trend we see is a need for redefining the words audience and the word consumer as well. Kids these days do not want to be passive consumers of content. They want to be able to shape, co-create, and develop the worlds and the stories that they live within and that they watch and view. And for brands looking to get engaged in this new way of consuming and creating content, we suggest places like Roblox could be a great place to start. Brands like Star Wars and Liverpool are already using this platform to engage with their audience and fans, allowing them to create experiences that are both tailored to their brand, but also allowing the kids to shape their own narratives as well. And we see in India in particular, some of these brands having a real resonance, things like Clash of Clans, highlighting the need for kind of a strategic, a creative, a kind of reinforced element of kind of co-creation that are having real resonance, and returning favorites like Ludo King, which has absolutely exploded in our data in terms of popularity, also shows the benefits to tying into this kind of traditional model of creating content, but then bringing it into the mobile gaming sphere as well. And tied into this is this concept of the metaverse. And the next phase of the internet can be described as thus. It's a shared virtual space that is always open with its own activities, such as shopping, entertainment, all built in. And over the last 2 years, the most popular video games have been ones that hold some characteristics of this, enabling kids to play, explore, and create in their open world. And there are increasing amounts of opportunities for brands to collaborate and integrate their content and kind of think outside the box, join the dots when it comes to this metaverse. We find that I suppose a fully realized metaverse may be years away, but partners that are already shaping up to take advantage of this as the technology, as the opportunities develop, are going to be ones that really resonate with kids for the long term as well. So again, this is a really great thing to kind of bear in mind, is redefining the words audience, redefining the words content to not just be kind of a passive expression, but also a creative, a co-creative, a collaborative expression of content creation is going to be ones that are really resonating with kids, not just in today's society, but also moving forwards. And then the final trend that we're seeing emerging as a kind of phenomenon during lockdown that's going to really resonate to come is this concept of generation speak. So we define generation speak as thus: the generation that preceded mine, we define it as generation type. So it's a generation that we're comfortable with content that's consumed through personal computers, through laptops, through using their keypads to kind of shape their narratives, shape their worlds. Then we move on to generation swipe, who have used smartphones and tablets to shape their narratives. And then we move on to generation speak, which is a generation that uses voice and voice commands to shape the worlds they do. And we can see initially why this has such an appeal with kids these days, because of its easy to use nature. It affords particular popularity with young children who are new to using devices. There's no need to read or write with smart speakers, which makes them a really great entry point in terms of technology for parents and children alone. And it's something that we feel that brands need to really consider when creating content that is geared towards Generation Z and Generation Alpha. It's already started to disrupt the way that kids consume content today. And nearly 40% of teens in the UK, and this is reflected in India alone, use smart speakers to help with the homework as well, which ties into the edutainment piece in terms of content that is educational and entertaining at the same time, and is embracing voice technology, is going to be ones that are really resonant for kids moving forward. Nearly 10% of kids in India own their own smart speakers, and nearly 20% of them have access to one as well. So it really shows the growing ubiquity of this technology. And also kids, 1 in 5 of them as well, prefer to control their devices with their voice, which has increased by a quarter over the past year alone as well. So it's a phenomenon that we only see increasing in popularity as well. And the implications are broad. And as you can see, audio content can really become a great touch point for brands which already have an online presence. And optimizing that kind of content to be voice optimized is going to really stand them in great stead to speak to the generations to come, as well as this emergent generation that are more comfortable, more used to using their voices to control their devices as well. Talking of licensing in a particular phenomenon, the brand licensing market is huge in India, in particular with children. It's estimated to be worth globally over $300 billion, and it's going through its biggest transformation as well, because the industry is growing to recognize that it needs to evolve and become more agile. So the number of licensing sources in terms of those licensed products and IPs are changing, developing over all the time, and kids that are buying licensed products is increasing across those categories, as we've seen in other areas as well. And a particular phenomenon that we like to touch upon is the boom in licensed face masks as well, which is again a phenomenon we only see increasing during lockdown as well. Some of the really hot properties that we see within the Indian marketplace are characters and brands such as Tom & Jerry, Motu Patlu, and Chota Beam as well, which are all having great resonance because they are having great resonance, great touch points, extending their metaverse during lockdown, and also creating content that is kind of able to be consumed across the metaverse and is educational in its kind of dint as well. So in terms of what this means as well, kind of user created content is going to really kind of tie into that kind of licensing boom that we're seeing. So in summary, the lines that define the digital and non-digital spaces that kids entertain themselves in are becoming increasingly blurred. And kids' ecosystems can largely differ by age, gender, and region across all the countries we see. So the importance of defining your audience and what they're doing, where they're doing, and what's important to them is no more important than before in terms of optimizing your content output, but also reducing wastage. getting kids' attention as well is becoming harder and harder because the choices they have to make across the media landscape in terms of the content they consume is becoming increasingly fragmented. So brands that can hopefully tie those all together are going to be ones that we really see resonating when it comes to content of the future. And we do need to redefine the word audience and the word content, because kids these days are not passive consumers. They want to shape their own worlds. So brands that can help them to shape their own destinies, control their narratives, are going to be ones that really resonate with them to come. And Generation Speak ties into this and ties this all together quite neatly in terms of, you know what, brands that are able to embrace voice activated technology are going to be the ones that really have this ongoing connection with children. And then finally, to tie everything together, edutainment is a real content creation development tool that we really see kind of having this benefit going forward. So if you want to find out more, you've got the URL there, which is kidsinsights.com/AC, where you can get access to our portal, which is where we display all of its data as it evolves in real time. And you can see some of the reports we produce across the kids space, especially those in India, to find out how content choices are evolving and developing, not just today, but also tomorrow as well.
Thanks a lot, Alex. That was incredibly informative and somewhat daunting, I must say, considering the facts that you mentioned, that how the media is getting really fragmented, making it difficult for the industry to have a very targeted approach. How do we reach every other child at every other stage of his his or her availability? So the child is able to access content at multiple places at it's no longer kind of confined to a television in the home. It is everywhere, right? So obviously
Absolutely.
Very daunting task that I'm sure studios and media teams would find. And I really like the fact that about Generation Speak, how you mentioned that the current generation is moving into using speech as a convenient way of accessing content, and I'm sure that is going to have a lot of repercussion of the kind of content we create going forward, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, so I would love to hear now Leena speak about this on the basis of whatever Alex has mentioned, and how her team is kind of overcoming these constraints or challenges or interesting times that we foresee. So welcome, Leena. We're dying to hear your side of the story.
Thanks, Kiran. And Alex, you really put me in a spot out over here. Too many things to talk about now as we move ahead into a new world and a new era. And,
Leena, I blame the children. It's nothing to do with me.
I know. They're sweet though, but yeah, I mean, a tough spot for us as content creators to be in at this point in time, which is also a good thing because, guys, as we kind of identify all what is in front of us and all what's around us amidst this pandemic and crisis and change of habits amongst the kids, it gets us even more agile and more astute in terms of how do we plan for content. Rightly said, Alex and Kiran, everything is fragmented right now, and we have to grab the attention of the child on the go, and that's proving out to be a challenge, and at the same time exciting, because then you kind of not look at your your entire work as just in a myopic and a one-dimensional manner. You then start planning for the entire value chain, which cuts across your consumer, which is the child. So briefly, I just like to kind of touch upon all the the surround sound that actually one keeps hearing right now about how the way habits have changed, and in this lockdown effect, the digital transformation has really taken catapulted into a lot of other areas and avenues, not necessarily of content creation, but also content monetization. So typically, we at Sony, we started off 3 years ago. Our journey kind of took off being a solo a television channel catering to our sweet spot of kids between 6 to 10 years of age. And it's very amazing to actually see how your 6 to 10 years of age, the tastes, the preferences of content choices that they used to make 5 years ago when we started doing our research within the same TG, and just before the lockdown when we did the TG, how dramatically different choices have kind of come around. So there, 5 years ago, the era was, of course, for us, the challenge was that we were the last entrants in the market space, and we needed to actually get something out over there with regards to content creation and creating a brand which would definitely cut across from, and stand out and shout out loud from all, the brands that have been operating in the Indian market, from the Turner network and from the Disney network and from, the Viacom network. And as Sony, we have had in India rather no expertise in terms of this genre of programming and content creation, which actually turned out to be great for us, because we did not come from any preconceived notions of this is the line of thought that we needed to follow. We took all the insights that we had, curated while speaking to not necessarily kids. We went out and reached out to the kids' parents and their extended family members, their teachers, the child psychologists, to kind of get a sense of where what is going on in the kid's mind as of 5 years ago. And the things that actually came up were very, very startling, and also in a way it paved the path for our brand and our product that we wanted to launch. So we firstly got around for the fact that, look, India is a country of multiple languages, multiple cultures, and what as a national product or a national TV station that I will cater for has to cut across the length and breadth of the country, right? So we cannot have, we of course have the same, the content playing out on the channel, but we would definitely have to do something different so that it seeps in down to the lowest common denominator in the villages, in the other small towns. And that's the reason the first step we took in terms of localization of our content. The journey from then to now, over 3 years, we would have around 8 languages of our content, which we would have it played out to. The 4 languages in the south of India, Marathi, Bengali, and Hindi, of course, which is the mainstay. And Gujarati is what we actually are catering to, or rather Gujarati is, and Kannada is the last language that we'll get around. So that was the one big thing that we said, that if we have to really create content, it has to speak in the language. It has to follow, the kids have to enjoy it in their local language. English, in fact, comes as the second or the third language of consumption in any household. So that is one thing which we really said that we'll really cut across and make that as a differentiator. The second piece that we said is that let's kind of get into a holistic local IPs, local characters, local names, and local situations wherein the kids can identify, and they can kind of say that, okay, fine, this is my story and this is what I have kind of been through, and I'd like to watch this character because I resonate with the kind of stories that he is telling me. So our entire programming lineup has kind of been homegrown IPs and homegrown fun-loving characters, and with the entire backdrop of comedy. Because what we actually found out was that in the 24 hours that the child has, he is so pressured in terms of from getting up in the morning, finishing off his homework, going to school, coming back, again going for his tuition classes, and then he barely gets that 1 or 2 hours of his me time where he wants to just be and do things which he really, really likes doing. So we kind of came across with also this brand proposition that, this is your channel, this is for you. We are giving you what you want to see with your lovable characters in the language that you want to actually watch the tunes in. And this is going to be your time, and this is going to be where you will come back after a really tiring day and tune into and get completely enthralled with the kind of content that we want to showcase. And we did have a great run. I mean, I think I can proudly say that we did clock good numbers, and the brand resonance as well as the character resonance that we had from our shows. In fact, over the 3 years of being in existence, really was overwhelming. I mean, the biggest gratitude that one can actually get is that when you talk about consumer licensing and products out in the market, the gray market of sorts actually is the biggest testament that, if your consumer products and your t-shirts and everything else of your characters is in the gray market and in the pirated market, then you know that you've arrived. And we saw the success really early. We saw it within a year and a half from our launch, which just gave us the entire thing that we are going in the right direction. Everything was fine until our dear COVID-19 actually knocked at our doors, and then life changed for the kids. And I can clearly say that because as a working parent, I have 2 boys within that age group at home. And I know the kind of struggles that they had actually gone through in the entire, and are actually going through in these 4 to 5 months. Yes, there is a whole lot of digital consumption happening of content. Yes, there is online school happening. Yes, there is a whole lot of skew happening wherein device agnostic content is, the key today. And as keeping the parent piece aside and actually talking from a business lens, there is a plethora of opportunities. Actually, the biggest piece that actually has come into play is the whole concept of co-viewing with the parents. We always knew that kids as a category had some amount of co-viewing happening, and parents were the gatekeepers and the watchmen, so to say, of what kids used to watch on television. But because the parents were also confined at home during lockdown times, there was actually a shift of viewing which actually happened, wherein parents used to watch kids content and vice versa. So a lot of times there have been kids actually talking to us about characters from the general entertainment space. And when we went around doing our latest research on Zoom around a couple of months back, we got insights from parents that they were watching kids content. So it was a very interesting dynamic that actually took shape, that there has been a lot of co-viewing. And yes, as Kiran, you rightly said that pester power, I mean, there are decisions taken by parents, but the final veto has to be of the child when it comes to purchasing certain white goods and the brands of the car and things like that. And that, I think, has kind of with co-viewing and parents spending so much more time with the kids, the decision making of actually viewing content also has kind of come in, is collective. Yes, if you have your own device, then the parent is not going to see what game you're playing and what you're kind of doing out over there. But in India, when most of your homes are single TV homes, it becomes very difficult, for all of the members of the house to kind of have their own individual devices. So the urban landscape is very, very different from what we see out of the cities, which we think even there has been a huge proliferation of devices and secondhand devices as such, wherein, the parents are handing over their devices to the kids, and consumption on YouTube and other gaming platforms is happening in the spare time. A lot of schools over there are not opening, neither, there is the syllabus which is actually carried down to them for them to learn. So the teachers are engaging, interestingly, in WhatsApping the syllabus across, so that they kind of revise and, do their bit. But then those timings are just very short, 1 hour, 2 hours. So what does the kid do? No physical activity, no going out. It's just confinement of, at home and spending as much time getting entertainment out from the device. Or the device here in this case being the tab, the smartphone, or the television. So we quickly changed our entire perspective in terms of what we would do during the pandemic. We realized that our traditional marketing methods of going down and doing activations on ground, because April, May, June is usually the summer months wherein kids have got a long summer vacation. And that is the time when, kids are pretty much out of the house, spending time in malls, or going out and playing with the kids and getting themselves entertained out of the house as well. But that was not an option at that point in time. So we decided to get everything out of our activations, on ground activations, and take them completely online. So we created these workshops on YouTube, which was your DIY workshops. We created yoga sessions, we created content which actually was in the edutainment space, but it had our characters endorsing it. Therefore, it kind of came from the house of Sony, which was like, okay, fine, our characters are speaking to the guys who are teaching you yoga and how to stay fit and what to eat, and how do you kind of do your DIY things. And we had a complete module that went out to the kids to keep them entertained for the summer. We also had a lot of games, our character games, which were launched around that point in time. Almost like, downloads of 16 lakhs and 58 lakhs and things like that, and unheard figures. And gaming as a genre during those 3 to 4 months did see a huge exponential spike. So did edutech. So those were the the categories and the genres which saw some unprecedented growth in terms of MAUs during, and we still do see those kind of views kind of happening for games even as we speak. We decided to kind of just make digital our forte, and digital as in like we went hammer and tong on YouTube, because YouTube's consumption kind for kids really kind of skyrocketed around that time. So we used that platform and we did all our promotions over there. We had luckily, a content bank for our on air and our telecast purposes that we could go with as fresh episodes of the content, and in fact even make television movies as brand extensions, which we got around catering to our audiences in that time. But soon we kind of learned that anything across the category within the scheme of things that anybody put up had a lag effect. The kids wanted refreshed new content. The kids wanted new things because there was so much of time that they had on hand and so much of consumption was happening. So we as content players had to constantly kind of innovate and think. So we had a 2 months to 3 months of a certain content lineup over April, May, June. We've completely changed that and got around doing fresh programming and fresh content from August onwards, because we definitely feel that for kids, lockdown is going to remain in some sense. Schools aren't going to kind of open up, at least for the TG that within kids that we are catering to. There will be a higher school that may open up from 1st of October, who knows, but it's all still speculative. But I don't think till the time we know and we are really sure as parents that our kids are going to be safe outside in school and public places, I mean, there would be certain amount of inhibition to send the kids out. So therefore, you will continue having kids staying at home, studying at home, and kind of consuming all sorts of content. And we fortunately are kind of equipped, and we've kind of planned ahead till at least April, May next year as to what our lineup is going to be and where we want to go with extensions of our existing characters going in short format on digital games. And we are also trying to get some sort of an affiliation with schools for getting our edutainment segments into the online schools in certain ways, wherein the kids don't get bored of sitting in front of the laptop for like 3 hours or 4 hours, and we kind of come there and give them the break, that little break that they want, but of course all fitting in line with the curriculum and the syllabus that the teachers are teaching. So yeah, a lot of exciting times. I just like to kind of sum it up by saying that we as content providers obviously have to get the pulse of the kids, because kids' habits from what they were earlier are actually going through a sea change, as we kind of have seen during these 3 to 4 months. They definitely would like to kind of experiment. They're the first ones to actually experiment in new content, and therefore it is our responsibility to kind of give them as much of new content in the edutainment as well as in the entertainment space, because their content need is never going to be satiated. They will definitely come asking for more. And as the story goes, that you kind of feed in as much as you want. Kids are like sponge. They will continue soaking in as much as they get, any information, anything. So it is challenging times ahead, but we're loving it. We at Sony are well geared and well prepared, and have got our plans in place going forward. So with that, I'll kind of arrest my case over here. But if there are any questions, happy to take.
Yes. So, in fact, what you kind of summed up, Leena, is pretty much what Alex was indicating, that that there has been a sea change, and like I said, India. It's the best time to be in India, probably, because there is so much of availability. Yeah, we have internet availability, we have mobile usage, we have a huge population which actually is ready and wanting to take that content forward, right? So great time to be here. And in terms of certain questions that and interesting things that you spoke about, right? Children being able to monetize content, and they themselves are creating content, and I think Alex also brought up that point. They are able to create content. There are apps, there is so much of material. Like, for example, I think Alex spoke about Minecraft, where you can get into it and you can develop, co-create a lot of content. And entertain yourself. I probably don't even need to get out of I need to get out of my space and continue creating content. So Alex, the question would be to you: is there any insight that your team is able to bring in, which lets us know how much is this monetization market? Are kids actually monetizing their market? Because India traditionally, as kids don't get into this, where the parents take care of the kids for a long period. But do you see a change that happening? And for Leena, probably the question would be: would you, as a network, look at actually using children's content? If children come up with content, would you look? So that's something that would be of great interest.
Absolutely. I mean, at the top level, we can see that Indian kids before lockdown even spend most of their money online versus offline. And this kind of consumer behavior has only been reinforced during lockdown, with kids spending more offline, decreasing by about 65% in the first 3 months of lockdown in India alone. Okay. And online shopping is becoming an increasingly social experience. There's a host of new e-commerce functions across Instagram, for example, and Facebook. So the online environment within India alone is increasingly better equipped to host and advertise businesses on any scale. And the number of kids that have posted items to sell on social media, for example, has increased by 30% since May alone. So it shows that the kids are able to monetize what they're doing, what they own, what they create as well. And this feeds into some of the brands that we really see having this resonance as well. So places like Snapchat have been able to launch its new minis feature that combines a simple transaction within a social environment. And kids through Snapchat, kids who favor Snapchat are 32% more likely, for example, to purchase clothes related to their favorite TV show. So it kind of shows that the brands, the IP that's able to take advantage of these trends. And as you said before, as you both mentioned, Leena and Kiran, kids in India are kind of more tech savvy potentially than most of the other kids we speak on a global basis. They have access to devices that a lot of their peers don't have around the world. So the ability to shop, to interact, to make purchases, and also make sales in a digital environment is more tangible for them than it ever has been before. And other brands that we see kind of jumping on this bandwagon are things like PUBG, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, with its creation of its labs, form of content where kids are able to shape the developments of the game space themselves, and their suggestions are being brought into the actual online multiplayer environment as well. So it all shows that kids are able to create content for themselves, and then they are able to then make it more tangible, make it monetized, make it more kind of creating into their actual spaces, as well as just their kind of imaginations as well. So there's a lot of examples of the ways in which the content they're creating is becoming monetized, is becoming leveraged as well.
Yeah. So Leena, are you using any of, would you consider using children's content, because that obviously has a lot of following? Is that something that you would consider?
Interestingly, we actually keep doing this. I think the biggest testament is that we've taken feedback from the kids themselves and actually made a channel for them. So that's the content that we've actually kind of got insights from them and created our shows and created the nuances around the shows and the characters.
Correct.
But on the other hand, yes, I kind of really agree with Alex over here that kids are getting really smarter and smarter. And, with the online resources of coding classes and all of that coming of age, one can kind of see the transformation and the thirst in the kids to actually kind of do and create a game of their own. It's just absolutely amazing the kind of stuff that the kids of today, 6 to 8 years old, can actually do. It's scary though, because it psychologically it just kind of makes them aware that they can do so much, and they are forever then kind of get into the restless mode. I want more, I want more, I want more. So that's another challenge, in fact, to kind of nurturing your gray cells and how to kind of keep that alive in kids. But yes, content, we actually have a lot of content which is played out in terms of short stories and snippets, which we integrate into the episode stories itself. We throw out contests to our kids every time, that if you're in a particular situation, how would you react? And we take that feedback and we curate stories, or we create themes around those stories, and we put it up, and things like that. So constantly there is the participation, possibly not in a very direct manner, but yes, we do have some sort of an indirect association with the kids, where kids are contributing to the kind of content that we're making. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I've got a question here that I've received, which is, what should be the responsibility of content providers in child's development, considering COVID or no COVID? This gen is hooked on to watching something all the time. So, what is our responsibility? What should we be doing to ensure that they are able to, get out of that also?
I think this ties back into what Leena and I both were saying from the insight side of things, as well as the content creator, which is brands that can embrace content that's edutainment, so that combines the educational aspect with the entertainment, are going to be ones that not only speaking to a child's development, but also aiding in their parents' ability to, act as teacher in this day and age. And this is, there's nothing to say that lockdown won't change this back to the way things were, but the ability that parents have to not only be able to rely on their iPad, their TV, their kids' mobile phones to be their entertainer, but also their teacher, is going to be a real great help, a real great boon to them going forward. So I think as content creators that can create content that both entertains and educates as well, are going to be ones that have this resonance, have this kind of loyalty as well going forward.
Yeah, I keep saying that there is going to be a lot of content that is going to be made available. There is going to be content which will be purely education. There will be content that is just entertainment, and it can be silly entertainment. It can be entertainment which may not please the parent. Like, I get appalled at the kind of stuff that my kids watch, it's like I have to really grab the iPad out of their hands. Yes, but as content creators, we just we cannot have one filter, right? I mean, if I have a brand which is in a mold, I will cater my content in that mold to entertain kids in a more sublime and a very, subconscious way of getting the education piece of it through, kind of, characters which are friends. So how do kids have to behave with friends, the social habits, something which is not out over there and out loud as education as such. So,
Yeah. So, I mean, you bring us to a very great topic, actually, considering this pandemic and considering the amount of usage of, smart media, smart devices, and it's probably something that both of you can answer, is that, do you see that this generation is going to go through a loss of socialization? Do you think isolation will become a trend for this, because they're able to, like us, we don't need to meet up to do this, this session. Are they going to get into a situation where they would be isolated and there would be a loss of socialization? Do you see that? Do you have any insight which tells us otherwise?
I think it's a trend that existed before lockdown, before COVID, which was kids' interactions becoming far more digital than they ever were before, and this has only been crystallized during lockdown.
Okay.
And I think it does have a significant impact on their mental well-being, their mental health. We do see anxieties around lack of physical contact with their friends being expressed across the Indian kids space, and that's true as it is of the younger children as it is of the teenagers we speak to. But I think the ways in which content creators can really alleviate this is by recognizing that the water cooler chats and the playground chats of 6 months ago are now becoming the breakfast table, the brunch chats of the family of today. And so ones that can bring the family together and create an environment that's conducive not only to fun but also to socialization, to finding out what's going on in the kids' lives and the parents' lives, are going to be ones that help to, I suppose, bridge the gaps and build those bridges between kids and parents that they aren't able to build with their friends, with their peers. So I think it's going to be a necessary kind of casualty of lockdown, is kids are unable to see their friends physically, and that's going to hurt them. The ability to socialize with them across social media and across chat platforms alleviates it to some extent, but if families can come together and through a shared appreciation of content in particular, those are going to be ones that help the mental well-being of kids by providing that kind of crutch for them to be able to speak to about what they're talking about, what they would normally talk about with their friends, what is concerning them, what their thoughts and feelings on the future are as well. So that's kind of what we see within our data.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as a parent, I think the constant coaching and counseling to my kids is very critical during these times. Yes, they miss their friends immensely. They cannot wait to go back to school and, just kick the ball around in the playground and things like that, right? I mean, that's going to continue. But I think kids are far more resilient than adults. The ones they kind of go back to school, I think they'll make up for all the lost time that they've had not meeting them. And we just hope and pray, fingers crossed, that they get back to normalcy and everything kind of works well for their for their benefit as well. I mean, mental benefit, social benefit, everything all put together. Because it's challenging times, and as parents, I think we should really handhold them and kind of coach them and mentor them as much as we can. And rightly said, Alex, if you have a community of parents and extended family members who actually come together and extend that support, it becomes a less harsher on kids for their growing up. I think I'm more worried about them getting bad eyesight or getting a hunch early in time rather than anything else. I know they'll go back to playing, so that's
maybe they'll go back with a greater appreciation for playing. That's maybe that's
being outdoors.
Yes. So I think we are in our last 5 minutes, and probably we could just answer one more question. is that, the children's, like we spoke, right? The media is fragmented and the children themselves are developing multiple interests and their loyalties are moving much faster, right? So one day they are interested in something, the next in 1 month or 2 months, they're changing their loyalties and saying, okay, let me look at something interesting. Like you said, Leena, that we need to keep them engaged because they are constantly seeking new content, right? So how do we keep changing content, or how do we keep moving content to keep them continuously engaged? You did speak about, you are already ready with multiple changes in content, but how do we know what is the next new thing that will interest them? How would we go about that?
So there is no new next big thing that will interest them. I think, everything, like I said, you kind of get around developing characters. Unfortunately for us, it is not like live action. We are in the space of animation, and animation does have a long gestation that needs to kind of go in. Developing of tunes and getting into storyboarding and then going into production and post and stuff like that. So we actually get ready for our next year's whatever we want to put up a year ago, So but like I said, our ethos of our brand and what we stand for is directionally where we actually cater to from a television content standpoint. Yes, digital on the other hand, and providing for digital content is a different ballgame altogether. We can have multiple stories that actually can translate from history to kind of geography to preschool to young adults to anything. We can have plethora of genres and mixes and storylines to cater to the digital side of things. But there we're kind of putting it out over there unknowingly whether it's going to stick or not stick, because we don't have the data to support it, as to what are the consumption. And secondly, on digital, the consumption and what gets recorded is from the parent's device. So we actually don't know, the kid,
the child is,
and what is his TG and what is he consuming and why is he consuming. So even though it's a gray area on that side, but we definitely know directionally that's where the trend is moving to. So from a programming perspective and content creation perspective, we will continue to kind of work in different directions for different platforms. So that's how it's actually come to. So depending upon the platform is what we will actually cater to from a content, not from the choices or not from the target audience and things like that. It's more a platform-based play.
Okay, understood. Alex, you would like to add something here?
Yeah, and at the risk of sounding like this is an elevated pitch, it's all about being able to track what they're doing, what's important to them in real time, and asking them in their own words what they're doing, what they favor. And so that's why we do what we do in terms of comparing simple awareness and kind of what they're doing and what they're watching with affinity, favoritism. You have to be asking kids what they like, what their favorites are, as opposed to simply what they're aware of or what they have seen. So we find that brands, properties, channels, content choices that kids favor across their digital and non-digital spaces, as opposed to ones that they've just passively seen or consumed, are the ones that are far more resonant as they age up, and ones that are far greater indicators of factors such as purchase influence as well. And this ties into the metaverse concept that I described earlier, that brands and properties that have an appeal that extends beyond their traditional boundaries and platforms are ones that are going to have a more sustained life cycle, as kids have these touch points, these multiple touch points that resonate as they progress from device to device, from platform to platform. Ones that have those kind of different ways in which to reach out to kids are going to be the ones that go forward. And this kind of also feeds in, if I may, just to the democratization of the home. So kids and parents are living together in silos. They're living together, working and learning together and playing together as well. So we track 20 verticals at Kids Insights in terms of the influence that kids have over household purchase decisions. And in India alone, kids' influence over all 20 verticals has grown during lockdown. And this isn't just traditional categories like food and drink or toys and games, but also things like white goods and even things like car insurance. They are having an increasing influence over.
Really?
Yeah, it's true. And I think it's just due to the way that these products are of our advertising marketed to the whole family. It's not just the parents themselves as the purchasers, but also recognizing that the kids have this great influence over what they're doing across all these spaces. So this could be a great way of extending the life cycle of IP and content by firstly embracing non-traditional verticals and feeding those into a brand's metaverse, but then also capturing their interest in kind of these non-traditional areas. Despite them not being traditionally kid-centric spaces, they are ones that are still capturing kids' attention, no more so than today where kids and their parents are watching things, playing with things, and learning about things together as a unit, as a silo.
Yeah. So I think that's the time that we have. I mean, I'm sure this is a topic that we could go on forever. I mean, and every time we have a conversation, I'm sure we will have additional 4 more questions. So, but it was such a pleasure to have both of you over here, and the insights and the notes that you have given is definitely going to be of help for people who have been watching this. So thanks a lot for both Alex and Leena to have you over here, and I hope we can catch up sometime and discuss this further.
Absolutely, it was our pleasure. Truly our pleasure. Thanks for getting us over here, Kiran.
Thanks for curating, Kiran, and thanks for yours from the other side of the fence, Leena, as well. It's been great to hear.
Yeah, let's connect. Yes.
Awesome.
Thanks.